The night air was thick with tension as Arjun walked through the deserted village, his footsteps echoing against the worn cobblestone paths. The scent of damp earth mixed with the faint, lingering aroma of burnt incense from the temple ruins. Shadows stretched unnaturally long under the dim lantern light, making the village seem trapped in time. He had not set foot here in years. Not since the night everything changed. Not since the curse had claimed its first victims. The villagers had warned him never to return, and yet, here he was, drawn back by a force he couldn't explain. A rustling sound came from the trees, followed by the low hiss of something unseen. Arjun stopped, his breath shallow. He turned his head sharply, scanning the darkness. Nothing. And yet, the presence was unmistakable. Something was watching. A group of villagers emerged from their homes, their eyes wary, their expressions hardened with fear and resentment. An old man stepped forward, his face lined with years of sorrow. "You should not have come back," he said, his voice barely more than a whisper. "I had no choice," Arjun replied. "The signs are everywhere. The curse is returning." A murmur spread through the crowd. Some lowered their heads, others clutched prayer beads, whispering frantic incantations. A woman stepped forward, her face pale. "It never left," she said. "We've been living in its shadow ever since you failed us." Guilt clenched at Arjun's chest, but he had no time for remorse. He reached into his satchel and pulled out a crumpled piece of parchment. The ink was faded, but the symbols etched into it were unmistakable. It was a warning, one written in an ancient script long forgotten. Someone had left it at his doorstep miles away, drawing him back to the place he had sworn to leave behind. "You think we don't know what this means?" Another villager spat. "It means death. Kalsharp is awake." A gust of wind swept through the square, snuffing out several lanterns. A child screamed. Arjun's pulse quickened. He felt the same chill he had felt all those years ago, the same eerie sensation of something slithering beneath the surface of reality. Then, the whispers began. Faint, inhuman, curling through the air like mist. The villagers backed away. Arjun clenched his fists. "I didn't come here to run," he said firmly. "I came to end this." The old man sighed, shaking his head. "You are not the first to try," he said. "And you will not be the last to fail." But failure was not an option. Arjun turned his gaze toward the temple ruins in the distance, where the shadows pulsed unnaturally against the cracked stone. He didn't know who had sent the warning or why, but he knew one thing: Kalsharp was calling. And this time, there would be no escaping its wrath. Arjun stood before the abandoned temple, its towering stone pillars covered in vines, the entrance shrouded in an eerie silence. The temple had once been a place of worship, but now it felt like a tomb. He stepped inside, his breath steady, but his mind racing. Dust swirled in the dim light, and the air carried the scent of decay. His fingers traced the carvings along the wall, serpentine figures intertwined in a pattern he had seen before. The story of Kalsharp, the serpent spirit, played out in symbols, a cycle of destruction, sacrifice, and rebirth. His eyes narrowed as he deciphered the ancient text beneath it. The curse was not merely a punishment, it was a cycle bound to the bloodline of those who tried to resist it. A soft creak echoed behind him. Arjun spun, muscles tensed, ready to fight. A woman stepped from the shadows, her eyes sharp, her movements careful. "You're wasting time," she said. Arjun exhaled, lowering his guard. "Who are you?" "Mira. I've been watching you." "That's not reassuring." She stepped closer, pulling a worn leather book from her satchel. "You don't have the full story. The curse doesn't just destroy, it chooses. And it's chosen you." He frowned. "I never asked for this." "Neither did anyone before you," she said, flipping through pages filled with symbols and diagrams. "Kalsharp doesn't wake on its own. It's summoned. And this time, someone wants it to rise completely." Arjun's jaw tightened. "Rudra." She nodded. "He's gathering the last piece of the ritual. If he succeeds, the curse won't just consume the village, it will spread." A distant tremor rumbled through the ground, dust cascading from the ceiling. Time was running out. Then we stop him, Arjun said. Mira studied him for a long moment. You still don't get it, do you? You think this is about fighting? About breaking a curse like it's some battle you can win? She closed the book. This is bigger than you. Bigger than all of us. Arjun held her gaze. Then tell me what I need to do. She hesitated, then pulled out a small vial filled with dark liquid. This will let you see the truth. But it comes with a price. He took the vial, rolling it between his fingers. What kind of price? Once you see, you can't unsee. The weight of her words settled over him. There was no turning back. Arjun uncorked the vial and drank. The temple walls warped, the carvings shifting, moving. The air crackled with unseen energy, and suddenly, Arjun wasn't in the temple anymore. He was somewhere else, somewhere ancient, somewhere where the curse began. And for the first time, he saw Kalsharp's true form. Arjun struggled to his feet as Rudra staggered back, his eyes wild with fury. The ritual's collapse had disrupted his control, but Kalsharp was still present, its massive form towering over them, shifting between the physical and the spectral. The sky churned with unnatural energy, and the ground trembled beneath their feet. Rudra wasn't giving up. He clenched his fists, summoning the last remnants of the ritual's power. The symbols around them reignited in dark flames, and Kalsharp let out a guttural hiss. Its fiery gaze locked onto Arjun, recognizing him not as an enemy, but as the one destined to decide its fate. You don't understand, Rudra shouted. Kalsharp is power beyond gods and men. We can control it. Arjun met his gaze with steely determination. No one controls Kalsharp. That's why the cycle always repeats. But I know how to end it. Mira rushed to his side, her voice urgent. The connection is still open. Kalsharp is bound to the will of those who summon it. If we can sever the last tether. Before she could finish, Rudra lunged, striking her with a force that sent her sprawling. Arjun barely had time to react before Rudra turned on him, his movements erratic, almost possessed. Their fists collided, the impact sending sparks through the air. Your ancestors failed. You will too, Rudra growled, trying to force Arjun toward the fire. Arjun gritted his teeth, pushing back. They failed because they fought it. But I'm not here to fight. Kalsharp loomed over them, its massive coils pulsing with energy. The ground cracked, and the flames around them flickered, as if waiting. Arjun closed his eyes for a split second, letting go of his anger, his fear, his need to win. The moment he did, something shifted. Kalsharp's body flickered, its form growing unstable. The spirit hesitated, sensing the change in Arjun's intent. Rudra screamed in frustration, his body contorting as he tried to force the ritual back into control.
No.
I command you. Kalsharp turned its burning gaze on him. For the first time, Rudra's expression shifted, not with power, but with fear. The serpent moved faster than thought, its form wrapping around him. Rudra's screams were swallowed in an instant, his body dissolving into the very energy he had tried to control. The moment he vanished, the flames died out, the ground steadied, and Kalsharp's form began to fade. Arjun stood motionless, watching as the spirit, freed from its binding, slowly unraveled into the night sky. The curse wasn't broken by force. It was undone by choice. Mira groaned, pushing herself up. Did we? Arjun nodded, exhaling deeply. It's over. But as the wind carried the last traces of Kalsharp into the night, a whisper lingered in the air, barely audible. A warning. The cycle was broken, but something had taken its place. The village stood in eerie silence. The fires had burned out, leaving only the scent of ash in the air. Arjun and Mira walked through the remnants of the ritual site, the once blazing symbols, now nothing more than faint marks on the cracked earth. The battle was over, but the weight of what had happened still lingered. The villagers slowly emerged from their homes, their faces a mix of fear and awe. They had seen the curse claim many before, but never had they witnessed someone survive it. An old woman stepped forward, her wrinkled hands trembling as she reached for Arjun. You ended it, she whispered. Arjun wasn't sure how to respond. He had spent years believing that breaking the curse meant destroying Kalsharp. But now he understood, Kalsharp had never been the true threat. It was the greed of men like Rudra, the ones who thought they could bend ancient forces to their will. Mira studied the sky, her brow furrowed. Something feels off. Arjun followed her gaze. The stars above seemed dimmer, their light struggling to break through the darkness. A strange stillness filled the air, not of peace, but of something waiting. We stopped Rudra's ritual, Arjun said slowly. But what if that wasn't the end? Mira turned to him, her eyes sharp. You felt it too, didn't you? That last whisper before Kalsharp disappeared. A chill ran down Arjun's spine. The spirit's departure had not been one of finality. It had been one of warning. The cycle was broken, but balance demanded something in its place. A sudden gust of wind swept through the village, carrying a faint sound, a distant, hollow whisper that sent shivers through the crowd. The old woman gasped, gripping her prayer beads. The gods do not take kindly to unfinished stories, she murmured. Arjun exchanged a look with Mira. They had won this battle, but something told him the true cost had yet to be revealed. He had thought his role in this was over. He was wrong. For centuries, Kalsharp had been the village's greatest fear. But now, something new was stirring, something no one understood. Arjun clenched his fists. He had fought fate once, and he would do it again if he had to. The villagers retreated to their homes, locking their doors against the unknown. The night stretched on, unnaturally quiet, as if the world itself was waiting. Mira sighed. Looks like we're not done yet. Arjun stared at the horizon, where the first light of dawn should have appeared. But the sky remained dark.
No, he said.
We're just getting started.